how to sort your DIBELS data sheet and gain some analysis from the data. I am using the Google Sheets version. You can also use the Excel version as well. And where there's a variation between these two sheets, I'll try and remember to let you know what that is. Okay, before starting the analysis or the sorting and the analysis, I've done a couple of things. First off, I have a Year 3 class, so I've taken my Year 3 data and I've actually duplicated the sheet, and I've created another version of it, same data, because this is where I want to manipulate the data. If you're not sure how to duplicate, you simply click on the arrow down the bottom here, you select duplicate, and it will duplicate the current sheet that you are in. Okay, and I've just renamed that. There's a couple of reasons for that. This is my whole school data sheet that I'm entering into, so I don't kind of want to muck around with that. If I manipulate things and make a few mistakes, at least I've made those mistakes in another sheet, and it's not going to affect the original data that I entered. And I've also used this to anonymize the children in my class for the purposes of this video. So duplicating your data is really good if you want to manipulate it and move it around and not muck up the original. I've also created another sheet here. I simply went across to the plus button here, the add sheet function, to create another sheet, and this is where I'm going to put my actual data analysis in. These are just like the notes for myself. I'm going to look at the composite scores for my whole class. I want to sort out my fluency pairs, A's and B's, based on my oral reading fluency data, and then I'm going to look across at some whole class trends. I'm looking for these whole class trends, so this is going down the columns in the data sheet. And I'm looking for 75% or more of my class to be in the green and blue, to be achieving at or above where they need to be. And if they're not, then I'm going to make a note of that here and what I might do with that information next. So heading back to the data sheet. First off, we're going to sort the data, so we need to use the sorting function. Here in the Google Sheets, I find that the sorting function here within the column cell there is not the best way to do it. Doesn't always turn out the way I want it to. I really find that going to the top here, the top of the column here, and using the sort function in this drop down menu is much better. But in order to do that, I first need to unmerge this big cell here. If I keep that cell merged there across the top, it's not going to let me sort what's beneath it. So the very first thing I need to do is click on that whole merged cell there, come up to the merge cells button and simply select it. That'll unselect all of those merged cells and pop that word across there to the left, and that's okay for now. So now when I go and select the column that I want, it's just letting me choose that actual column there. It's not selecting all of the ones that are included underneath that merged cell there. If you're in the Excel spreadsheet, the sorting function within the cell itself, or within the title of the cell or column that you're after, does work really well. It's got a little drop down arrow just like this one here, and I find in Excel that that function works really well. Okay, so let's get to some sorting. I'm going to start with my composite scores. So I'm going to click here. I tend to sort my sheets from my data from Z to A, so from highest to lowest. So I simply click on that option there, and there it does straight away. It just sorts all of those composite scores for me. Composite scores, of course, being the aggregate of all of this information here to give me an overall view of how my children are achieving in reading. So I'm simply now going to take all of the children here and copy that information and pop over to my data analysis sheet, and I'm going to pop it in there underneath composite score. So what that's done is it's ordered my children back in the data sheet from those achieving most easily through to some who are having some difficulty with their reading. So now I'm going to pop back to my data sheet and capture who that is based on the composite score colours over here. So from student 6 down to 21 are at blue. So I'm going to come in back to this information here, 6 down to 21. I'm going to colour them in blue. Then it is from student number 22 down to 7 are in the green for the composite score. 22 down to 7, so I'll select that range, colour those guys in green, and then my two here, 20 and 12, are in yellow for the composite score, and then my final three I know are in the red. Okay, so My purpose for doing that from my own data analysis is so that I can flick here and have a quick look in general, not only how many of my students, but which ones in particular are achieving at or above where they need to. And for me, I find that's good just to keep that tucked into the back of my mind when I'm making choices about whole class texts and different decisions I make about reading for my students in class. And of course, these here are my students that are at risk, so I'm considering them in my whole class reading as well, and then that also helps me consider what I might do for them in terms of some targeted tier 2 approach teaching and learning with them. Okay, back to the data sheet. Now I'm going to go and have a look at my oral reading fluency, and I want to look at the children who are, I want to sort that data in terms of, again, who's achieving and who's perhaps struggling. So I'm selecting that whole column using the from the cell right at the top, the letter cell. I'm going to right click and sort Z to A again. Again, I'm going to go highest to lowest. Okay, so resorts that data for me. Now just focusing on looking down this column here. I will come back to how much of my class in terms of a percentage that's looking like shortly, but for now I just want to gather that data in terms of helping me to sort out my fluency pairs, how I'm going to match those or pair those children up. So I'm going to come across to this column here, capture all those children, copy, and then come across to my data analysis sheet, and I'm just going to drop them all there into into the column A for the moment. Sorry, not column A, but who is going to be an A. Then I'm going to split them in half. I know from counting up before, I think it takes me down, actually, I've got 26 children in my class, but I've only got data for 25, so it's going to come out uneven pairings to start with. So I'll quickly count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'll go number 13 like that. So I'm going to capture all of the, whoops, sorry. No, I'm going to, so these are my more able readers here, and from student 10 down, I'm going to copy those and cut them and pop them over here. Don't need them there anymore. So that for me now is looking like a more able buddied up with a less able reader. So I had all of my children from my most able through to my least able. I took the about the middle ground of children in terms of their oral reading fluency, how many words correct per minute they were getting, in terms of their pace. I took that bottom half of my class and I've now buddied them up alongside the more able half of my class. So 6 and 10 become buddies, 14 and 22, 19 and 18, and so on. I will cross-check that and have a look for social pairings as well. Sometimes, you know, children are ideal in terms of academic buddies, but socially they might not fit. I'm also going to go back and just check to make sure, student 23, I'm basing these pairings on words correct per minute. So how many words are they getting through in that minute that they're reading? Are they reading at a reasonable enough pace? But I also want to check the, this child's accuracy in terms of, are they the best person to be an A? And I might just flick my eye back over actually all of these students here in terms of their accuracy as well. So from 6 down to 23, I ordered their information based on their words correct per minute, 6 down to 23. I'm looking down the column now for accuracy for all of those kids. I'm really happy. They're also reasonably accurate readers. Some here making some few errors here, some higher errors, but it's not affecting in terms of their general accuracy of how it is that they're reading. And I'm also not too concerned because I know I'm going to focus on fluency and how to read accurately through whole class teaching, and also reinforce that when we come to do our fluency practice as well. So what have we done so far? We have got our composite scores of our children from our highest through to our least able children in our class. We have got our oral reading fluency data in terms of our fluency pairs. So reordered that here in the sheet, reordered from highest to lowest, and oral reading fluency correct data, dropped that in here underneath A, split that in half, took that bottom half, buddied them up with the more able half on the left. I do have another child here, another child that will fit into my data to help make those pairings even. If in the case you don't have an even number of students in your class, what I've done in the past is I've made a trio of children where the pairings and the ability works well together. Often as well, I've found that there's been children away So somebody who is potentially a more capable reader can be that person who buddies up with others who aren't often there, or it might be that children are out at some other intervention or doing something else. They're off at the dentist. They are all sorts of things during when you happen to do your fluency time. So being a little bit flexible with those pairings sometimes is useful as well. Okay, back to, sorry, I've now got that information for my fluency pairs. I'm now going to start to look at whole class trends. So I'm going to go to my nonsense word fluency, correct letter sounds information. I'm going to select to the top of that column E for me here in the sheet, and I'm going to sort that again from Z to A. I tend to go from top to bottom. Okay, this is where I'm now looking down to see, have I got 75% of my whole class? How are they going? Are they achieving at where they need to be? So I've got a data set of 25 here, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children who aren't in that green or that blue where I'd like them to be. So I'm going to pull up my calculator, do a quick calculation. I've already forgotten how many I said, 2, 4, 6 children. So 6 divided by 25% is what percentage there? So 24% of my students aren't achieving at where they need to be. So that gives me, I've got 76 that are, that's just over. So that's not too bad. So I'm going to go and note that in my data analysis sheet, 76% here. Oops, 76%. I'll pop that in green to show that 76% of my students are achieving, but I'm going to just be, I'm going to actually put that 24% underneath, just in the yellow, just to remind myself that there are, whilst majority of my kids are, so with my whole class teaching, that's going okay for those children achieving, but there is an element here where those children aren't reaching what they need to. Okay, now I'm going to go back and look at the words recoded correctly per minute. So this correct letter sounds here is the ability to recall those grapheme phoneme correspondences, letter sounds. Now I want to see how well my class is doing overall in terms of blending those sounds back together. So top of the column, sort it. Okay, top to bottom, scroll on down here and check out. I can already see that there's one more than I had before. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 7 children out of the 25. Again, I'm going to grab my calculator. 7 divided by 25 as a percentage is how much? It's 28%. Are not achieving where I want them to in terms of whole class teaching and learning. So I will, so the percentage that are is 72, getting my maths right there, 72%. So that's not quite where I would want my students to be at achieving across the board. So I'm going to pop that there in yellow for myself, just to alert myself that I need to do some thinking about how I support children to decode and blend words together during my whole class teaching practice. Time to analyse and sort that word reading fluency data. Back we go, top of the column, Z to A. Cool, what have I got here? So lots of blue there, good chunk of green, that's going really well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So again, I've got 6 of my kids out of the 25. So on par with, you know, that 76% again. I'm going to copy and paste that over there, but 24% still in terms of not achieving where they need to be for that word reading fluency at this beginning of year data. So I might consider what I do for my whole class teaching to help support those kids as well. And of course, I'll think about them in terms of a small group too. But for now, I'm just looking at my whole class data trends. I've already, sorry, what am I doing next? Oral reading fluency, words correct per minute. Let's go and sort that. Top of the column, sort that there, Z to A. Lovely big chunk of blue there, so kids achieving well above and beyond the words correct per minute at this stage of the year where they need to be. Several as well, easily fitting in where they need to be, and even you can see from the numbers, whilst they're green, it's still beyond the expected benchmark there, which is really nice. And then I've got this chunk here, so I've got 4 in yellow and 3 in red, so that's 7 out of my 25 children. I need to think about how I support that whole class wise. there's that same data information there. 7 of those kids means only 72% of my class are achieving where they need to be for that whole class data. So I'm going to think about, of course, my fluency peer work. Fluency reading practice here is really going to help support me with that. Let's jump to accuracy now for oral reading fluency. I'm going to sort that there, jump to the top of the column, right click, Z to A, top to bottom. Nice big chunk here. No one achieving in the blue there. I'm just thinking if it does come up in the blue. Can't recall. But I've got someone here that's sitting on 100%, so that's wonderful. Lots of kids here in the green for the accuracy. However, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 again. That's 7 amount of 7 kids out of my 25 who aren't quite sitting where they need to be. That's that information there. I'm just going to pull that across, copy that there into that cell. So haven't got as much of my class in terms of their fluency on target with getting enough words read, increasing their pace and or their accuracy, so not reading words correctly. So those two measures there are going to affect comprehension in the long run. So I want to be thinking carefully about how I support that in class. So there is my data analysis done for now. I will note I haven't got my May scores in here. I haven't done that with my class yet, and I haven't therefore got the data to put in. It's not going to impact my composite scores too much overall. It doesn't add a huge amount to the overall end score there when I put my May scores in. What I might see is that some of my more able and fluent readers here, their May scores potentially could be low, and that could indicate a few different things. If you were at the Wellies DIBELS Part 2 session recently, we spoke about that, about what could be happening for those children and what you could do. So that completes my sorting and my sort of first round of analysis. So I've got my kids' composite scores. I have then gone and looked at sorting my oral reading fluency data to help me get my fluency pairs to kick off the year. And then I have gone and looked down the columns for that whole class Tier 1 teaching. What's the general temperature of my class? And then, of course, over here I've seen that a lot of my kids are doing well with their grapheme phoneme correspondences. Need some work done on some blending in terms of decoding. Word reading fluency in general is going okay, but I know I'm going to support that as well, just to help those other kids that may be whole class and or as a small targeted group. And then, of course, my oral reading fluency here is down a bit lower than I'd like for all of my children. So as a quick sort of next steps, what might I think I do here? I'm going to make sure that I'm following the scope and sequence for spelling. We do daily spelling. I'm going to make sure that's going to help keep on lifting and building the letter sound or grapheme phoneme correspondence knowledge for my children to support everybody. So not only those that are a bit struggling, but for everybody. I'm going to do that at year level. And then for some of these children here, this 24% of my class, I may well do that as a follow-up in another practice round as a small targeted group as well. My nonsense word fluency, the ability, so this is all about blending. So I may do things such as I might play some of those yeet games that a lot of people know about. So that's about blending words. I may do some word reading lists. We may time those to support children. We may not time to start with. It may just be about making sure we're getting our accuracy down pat, and then we may move to timing those lists to see if we can increase our pace and increase how many words we get through. That's just a couple of ideas. What else have I got here? Okay, so for my word reading fluency, I'm going to make sure that I continue with my whole class texts. They're going to have lots of really rich words in general in there, lots of those everyday words that children need exposure to, just to help lift up that 24%. Again, those that 24% I may target as a small group and focus in on. And again, I may use my whole class text in that small group, and we may go over and practice reading those words again, may pull some of them out, look at their irregularity. If it is, they are tripping up on some of those more irregularly spelt words, not as easily decodable. Maybe they've got a few syllables in those words, and I can work on those in a small targeted group as well. The last thing here, my oral reading fluency, of course, that's all about fluency. So the things that I could do to help in my class to support that, of course, I'm going to set up my fluency pairs. I'm going to make sure that it's likely at the start of the year to be a whole class text that I unpack in terms of vocabulary to start off with. The children are going to track with me to start with, so they get that supported model of how to read with good fluency, read accurately, read at a good pace, using some phrasing, using the punctuation correctly. We'll likely do some choral reading as well, where they'll read all together with me, and or they might echo me, where I read a sentence or two, and then they echo in the same way that I have read. And then, of course, I'm going to use my whole class text for fluency practice after all of that unpacking and practice with it as well. Of course, with my fluency practice, my Reader A is going to go first. They are the more able one as that support, that extra model for my Reader B. Reader B goes second. So by the time they get to reading that text ostensibly by themselves, but with their buddy there for listening in, for support, they've had it, whole class, I've modelled it, we've read it together, their buddies read it. So Reader A, I'm going to teach them those, teach actually both Reader A and B, those fluency routines, for how we give feedback and how we support someone when they get stuck on a word. Looking here across my notes, I think I have mentioned all of the things that I wanted to there. Okay, checking back in on my next steps that I was going to focus on, just to make sure in my other notes that I haven't left anything off. Thank you for bearing with me for a moment. Of course, here in my word reading fluency, my whole class text, I'm going to be unpacking that vocab as well in a really explicit way. And it's going to be that Tier 2 vocab for sure. Yes, there'll be some text specific in terms of the topic, but Tier 2 is that vocab, that rich vocab that is transferable across a range of texts and a range of contexts as well. If you're not sure about Tier 2 vocabulary, then Beck, McCowan, and Kukin, I might not have the right order. They've got a great text called Bringing Words to Life. They have conceptualized that tiers model of vocabulary there that I am mentioning. I think that is about it for sorting out your DIBELS data on a Google Sheet. You can also do it on the Excel sheet, of course, and then thinking about how I can utilize that data for my teaching practice and to support the learners in my class.